So welcome to our second warm-up workshop, which is going to be the custom GPT. Now, when we work with custom GPT, it's going to be very familiar if you've used generative AI and run prompts. It's very similar to that, but what it does, it applies a programmatic concept to that where it is used for recurring tasks. So there's going to be some overlap with what we've done with Power Automate. Specifically, we will be redoing, in a sense, how to send emails using a custom GPT this time around, whereas in the last assignment you were using RPA to do that, but this time we're going to use custom GPTs to do that. Before we dive into that though, I wanted to show that it's a similar thought process when it comes to actually working through the build process. You have to identify the inputs, you have to identify the logic, and you have to identify the outputs. So in terms of the flow, this is the flow that's described in the document. So what you can see in here, again, we have to identify the input, which this time is, again, the PBC spreadsheet. In the last warm-up workshop, it was an expense spreadsheet. This time, it's the PBC spreadsheet, same as what you would see with the assignment that you did on RPA. Now, one thing that's different here that you'll have to work on is to create more different types of inputs to test it out to make sure when the AI brings in that data, it does what you want, because producing one data might not be good enough. And so what I've done is I've produced two spreadsheets. So this is important to understand when it comes to the assignment as well. Now, ultimately, the logic here is to create an email that's for the follow-up, again, with the outstanding documents. So it's going to extract that from the spreadsheet, and then the output is the email. Okay, so now what we're going to do, we're going to actually make a custom GPT. Now you do have to have a paid subscription to ChatGPT to access this. If you don't have that, you won't be able to make it. So if you go down to GPTs and then you go to create GPT, you'll get this configuration interface, which is in the Word document. What is neat about custom GPTs, you don't actually have to generate the prompt yourself. You can actually ask it to make the prompt. So I have some statements here to facilitate the process. This is for a small CPA firm that is conducting audits in Canada. I want to make a GPT to generate separate follow-up emails for each individual listed in the provided by client spreadsheet. Each email should contain the recipient, the items outstanding, the due date, and signed by the auditor. So sometimes it will generate the profile picture by itself, and other times you have to prompt it to do that. And it's come up with a pretty good name. So in other instances, sometimes it'll ask you for the name. So then you may have to modify that from that kind of perspective. But just to show you now, the configuration tab is automatically populated based on your initial prompt. So you can review that and see if that makes sense. So for example, if we're not satisfied that we don't like the tone, so we can add something in here. The email should have a professional tone, but be succinct and polite. So now you can see that it has actually specified that it should be professional, succinct, and polite. And so this is the advantage there. One interesting thing in here, it says that it's told it not to hallucinate in here as well. So that's kind of the advantage of working with the when you put commands in here, it can automatically do that. So it's asking here if we want the auditor signature. So we can say, so you can see here that it's asking whether there should be an auditor signature. So how we're going to handle that is we're going to ask the custom GPT just to ask the user to give the signature at the outset, so this way they can customize it depending on who is interacting with the custom GPT, because it can be anybody. So you can see here it's added this bullet here, a courteous closing and a signature by the assigned auditor. And now it's asking us for, would you like to customize how it handles flagged or incomplete? So now it's asking us whether we would like to test it. So we're going to say yes. because it couldn't take the spreadsheet in, and this might work when you actually publish it, but in terms of actually using it in here, so we can just kind of paste it in instead and then allow it to see if it works. So it's generating based on this the outstanding items. As you know from the assignment, there are multiple statuses here, but it picked up on only the outstanding items here, which is it, and it skipped over the completed and under review items there. So once you're done, you hit create. So this is for the purpose of the assignment. You have to make it public. Anyone with a link. So now this is publicly accessible anywhere. I will be sharing this with as part of the classwork there. I also have an older version, but it's called a client assistant, so you can see the two different kind of versions there. And then, as I mentioned, we have two spreadsheets in here, so I have a second one as well to test it out. So let's see if the spreadsheet works this time around. You have to check it with the spreadsheet to make sure that it only picked up on the outstanding and it did not email everyone. This is an overview of how custom GPTs work. Go through this video and then try this in class. I'm not as worried about having technical issues here because it is much more natural language driven as opposed to the RPA assignment we did earlier, which was much more technical. So there are a number of resources out there. I've included them in the Word document as well, so do check that out. Bye for now.